Preface. Ethereal Hollywood is a world reconfigured from the golden age of Hollywood, where the legendary stars are not just memories, but immortal archetypes, still living in their own parallel alternative reality. Familiar history is not duplicated but flexible and constantly revisioning itself along diverse pathways. Time and space are also more fluid and less binding. And what has been called magic works in odd and unusual ways, producing scenarios from the silly to the surreal. And since these stories are in an alternative world or dimension, there are variances from real-world facts, such as the relationship between characters, studios, events. This is a fluid world where history flows in unexpected directions. These are audiobooks with imagery synced to the narrative as much as possible, serving as quasi-storyboards to give a rough visual dimension to the stories. Narrative engineers ride the MGM train. Book 22 of the Ethereal Hollywood series. By Arnold Kalnitsky. The California sun, a benevolent spotlight even at this early hour, beat down on the hushed throng gathered on the private platform at Union Station. The air, usually buzzing with the frantic energy of Hollywood's elite, was thick with a different kind of anticipation, a shared, delicious unease. Howard Strickling, MGM's silver-tongued publicist, adjusted his crisp tie, a nervous tic he only displayed when orchestrating something truly monumental. Beside him, Eddie Mannix, the studio's unflappable fixer, surveyed the assembled faces with the keen, unreadable gaze of a man who had seen it all, and then some. The cause for this unusual congregation? A cryptic summons from Strickling and Mannix, hinting at a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and a true Hollywood spectacle. The guest list was a veritable who's who of the gossip and movie press, the very engines that fueled the Dream Factory. Hedda Hopper, her formidable hat a feathered declaration of her reign, clutched her ever-present notepad. Louella Parsons, her gaze sharp and acquisitive, whispered conspiratorially to a nearby columnist. Elsa Maxwell, ever the witty provocateur, exchanged knowing glances with Sidney Skolsky. Adela Rogers St, her ink-stained fingers tapping impatiently, looked ready to pry secrets from the very air itself. Walter Winchell, the master of the pithy pronouncement, surveyed the scene with his characteristic air of detached amusement. Ed Sullivan, his posture radiating an earnest curiosity, seemed to absorb every detail. Elinor Glyn, the Diane of romantic fiction, offered a knowing smile, perhaps already concocting a dramatic scenario in her mind. Jimmy Fiddler and Earl Wilson, eager for any crumb of scandal or scoop, huddled together, their notebooks already poised. "Ladies and gentlemen," Strickling began, his voice smooth as polished chrome, "we are thrilled to have you here today. MGM is embarking on a new era, one of unparalleled glamour and, dare I say, adventure. And we want you, the esteemed custodians of Hollywood's narrative, to be the first to experience it." Mannix stepped forward, the shadows under his eyes testament to countless late nights spent smoothing over crises. "We've arranged a special journey for you, a surprise trip to a destination unknown. A special train, courtesy of the Lion, awaits. Prepare yourselves for an experience that will redefine your understanding of movie making, and perhaps, beyond." A ripple of excited murmurs swept through the crowd. Unknown destination. A special train. This was precisely the kind of tantalizing mystery that fueled their careers. They were sharks in designer shoes, their natural habitat the murky waters of rumor and innuendo, and here was a fresh, uncharted ocean. As they boarded the gleaming crimson and gold train, the opulence was unmistakable. Plush velvet upholstery, polished mahogany, and uniformed porters attended to their every whim. The reporters, initially wary, soon succumbed to the luxurious embrace of the MGM experience. Champagne flowed, and the conversations turned to the latest box office hits, the rumored romances, and the inevitable studio politics. Then, the train began to move. Slowly at first, then picking up speed, it whisked them away from the familiar sprawl of Los Angeles, deeper into the desert, the landscape outside turning from arid scrub to stark, dramatic canyons. The mood, initially festive, began to shift. The rhythmic clatter of the wheels over the tracks seemed to take on a more insistent, even ominous, tone. The first surprise came without warning. A sudden, violent jolt sent the reporters tumbling. Lamps crashed, and a collective gasp echoed through the carriages. The train lurched to a halt, the silence that followed more unnerving than the cacophony. "What in heaven's name was that?" Hedda demanded, her voice sharp, her eyes already scanning for a headline. Mannix, ever the picture of calm, entered the dining car, his expression unreadable. "A minor, technical difficulty. Nothing to worry about." But his voice lacked its usual conviction. The reporters, however, were not easily reassured. They were seasoned pros, accustomed to sniffing out manufactured drama. This felt real. The technical difficulty turned out to be a rather elaborate staged rockslide, blocking the tracks ahead. A voice, amplified and tinny, crackled over the train's intercom. "Welcome, esteemed journalists, to the first challenge of your MGM adventure. To proceed, you must demonstrate your commitment to the magic of motion pictures. Your task: to clear the path using only the resources at hand and your formidable intellects." A collective groan went through the assembled press. This was less a spectacle and more manual labor. "This is preposterous," Elsa Maxwell declared, adjusting her pearls. "I didn't sign up for a road crew." Sidney Skolsky, ever the opportunist, was already scanning the surrounding countryside. "Perhaps there's an angle here. Reporters brave the elements for the sake of art." Walter Winchell, however, was already crafting his lead. Hollywood's finest, trading their typewriters for shovels, in a Hollywood Hills mudslide. "Only in this town, folks." As the reporters grumbled and debated, a figure emerged from a dust cloud near the tracks. It was Mervyn Leroy, the renowned director, looking surprisingly unruffled in his khakis, a shovel in his hand. He winked at the reporters. "Don't just stand there, folks. The show must go on." Reluctantly, and under the directorial eye of Leroy, the reporters began to work. Hedda surprisingly showed a knack for directing the shovel brigade, barking orders with the authority of a movie mogul. Louella, ever the observer, took copious notes, already thinking about the human interest angle. Ed Sullivan, ever the good soldier, toiled earnestly, his face streaked with dirt. Just as they were making headway, a series of loud bangs echoed through the canyon. Smoke billowed from further down the tracks. "Bandits!" someone shouted, the word hanging heavy in the air. Panic flared. The reporters, who had just been playing at being workers, were now confronted with a genuine threat. Or was it? Suddenly, the roar of a motorcycle engine shattered the tension. Out from behind a rock formation sped a sleek, powerful machine, ridden by a suave figure in a leather jacket. It was Ricardo Mantalban, the dashing star, looking every bit the hero. He brandished a prop gun, but in the tense atmosphere, it was hard to tell. "Stay back, you ruffians!" he bellowed, his voice resonantly Hollywood. Then, from the other side of the tracks, a flurry of activity. A group of studio electricians, under the direction of Douglas Shearer, were expertly rigging spotlights, their powerful beams illuminating the scene and momentarily blinding the bandits, who, upon closer inspection, revealed themselves to be a few disgruntled studio grips in hastily applied disguises. Mannix, looking almost pleased, clapped Leroy on the shoulder. See, every problem has a solution. Especially when you have the best talent in the business. The reporters, their adrenaline levels soaring, were now more confused than scared. Was this staged? Was it real? The line between the two was blurring with alarming speed. The train, now cleared of debris, continued its journey. The destination, when it was finally revealed, was a spectacularly isolated soundstage, meticulously recreated to resemble a remote and exotic location. Think jungle ruins, complete with crumbling stone and lush, artificial foliage. Inside, a feast awaited them, prepared by Adrian, the legendary costume designer, who had overseen the catering with the same meticulous eye for detail he applied to his gowns. Irving Thalberg, the legendary producer, even made a surprise appearance, a rare venture from his usual quiet observation. He offered a brief, eloquent speech about the power of storytelling and the importance of captivating audiences. We want you to understand the effort, the artistry, the sheer spectacle that goes into creating the magic you witness on screen, Thalberg explained, his voice soft but resonant. This journey, this test, is designed to give you a glimpse behind the curtain. To show you the dedication, the ingenuity, and sometimes, the sheer grit that goes into every MGM picture. The reporters, their initial fear replaced by a grudging admiration and a renewed sense of hunger for a story, were now faced with their ultimate challenge. L.B. Mayer, the studio head, arrived, his presence filling the grand space. He didn't mince words. You have seen a taste of what MGM can do. You have experienced challenges, yes, but you have also seen how we overcome them. We are giving you the exclusive of a lifetime, a behind-the-scenes look at Hollywood's greatest studio. All we ask in return, he paused, his gaze sweeping over them, is your understanding. Your commitment to portraying MGM in a positive light. We are not asking for lies, mind you. Simply, focus on the triumphs. On the glamour. On the dreams we create. The reporters exchanged uneasy glances. This was the crux of it. Their careers were built on digging for dirt, on exposing the flaws, on revealing the real stories behind the celluloid facade. To promise only positive publicity was to tie their hands, to muzzle their most effective tools. Hedda Hopper, ever the pragmatist, spoke first. Mr. Mayer, our readers rely on us for the unvarnished truth. They want to know what's really happening. Louella Parsons nodded in agreement. And we have a responsibility to them, sir. Mannix stepped in, his voice a low rumble. The truth, Miss Hopper, is often what we choose to highlight. And right now, MGM is choosing to highlight triumph. You were given unexpected challenges, and you overcame them. You saw the dedication of our people. That, too, is the truth. The tension in the room was palpable. The reporters, accustomed to dictating terms, were being dictated to. They thought of their deadlines, their columns, their precarious positions in the Hollywood hierarchy. A negative review, a juicy exposé, could make or break a career. Theirs are the stars they covered. But a prolonged absence from their jobs, coupled with the sheer impressiveness of the MGM spectacle they had just witnessed, weighed heavily. Just as the stalemate threatened to become permanent, a familiar voice cut through the air. It was Joe Pasternak, the master of musicals, a smile playing on his lips. He was flanked by Vincente Minelli, the visionary director, and Adrian. Don't be so grim, my dears. Pasternak boomed, a veritable bear of a man. Mr. Mayer is offering you a golden ticket. Think of the headlines. MGM stars conquer the desert. Hollywood's finest defy the odds. We'll make this into a movie. Minelli nodded, his eyes alight with creative fervor. Imagine the sequences. The drama. The sheer visual splendor. Adrian produced a sketch from his portfolio. It depicted the reporters, a little disheveled but triumphant, standing before the staged jungle set, bathed in dramatic lighting. We could even design a wardrobe for the event, he added with a flourish. The reporters looked at each other. The idea, initially abhorrent, was starting to sound appealing. A story about their own adventure, framed in the grand tradition of MGM storytelling. It was meta, it was dramatic, and it was, undeniably, a scoop. Elinor Glyn, with a twinkle in her eye, chimed in. Perhaps, gentlemen, a little good cheer is precisely what Hollywood needs. And what better way to deliver it than through the magic of MGM, and our own, unique experiences? Walter Winchell, seeing the shift in momentum, leaned forward. You know, folks, sometimes the best stories are the ones that make you believe. And if MGM can make believe, then maybe we can too. Slowly, one by one, the reporters began to nod. The allure of the grand MGM narrative, combined with the undeniable fact that they had just been part of something extraordinary, was too potent to resist. They were journalists, yes, but they were also creatures of Hollywood, participants in its grand illusion. All right, Mr. Mayor, Hedda conceded, a small smile playing on her lips. You have our word. We will focus on the magic. We will tell the story of MGM's enduring power. A collective sigh of relief went through the studio executives. Mannix gave a discreet nod. It was a victory, albeit a slightly unconventional one. As the train, now filled with a renewed sense of camaraderie and the distinct scent of champagne and success, began its journey back to Los Angeles, the reporters found themselves collaborating, not competing. They swapped notes, not for gossip, but for comedic timing. They discussed camera angles, not for scandalous shots, but for iconic imagery. They had arrived as sharks, eager to devour and expose. They left as storytellers, ready to weave a tale of dreams, adventure, and the indomitable spirit of Hollywood. And in the annals of MGM's golden age, the story of the press junket that became an adventure, and a triumph of positive publicity, would forever be a legend whispered in hushed, reverent tones. The lion, it seemed, had tamed its most formidable critics, not with threats, but with a dose of pure, unadulterated Hollywood magic.